Charlie is my uncle, is my godfather. For a guy, who was born in Brooklyn, that was like an important thing growing up in Neck Road in the early 70s. Sort of hook up with my uncle in 1980, 81, instead of seeing the uncle that I grew up with, who was like tattooed, wise guy, and every kid where I grew up wanted a wise guy uncle. I sort of meet my uncle in a very different place in the early 80s. He's sort of housebound, bedridden, not able to work. He had stopped working March 10th, 1976. That's when this sort of journey started. For 30 years, I've hung out with my uncle and I've made images of him. I photographed him, his children, the different wives he's had, and all the different things that my uncle went through. I mean, he's battled with mental illness, he's battled with anorexia, with codependency. It's interesting when you spend so much time with someone, and maybe it's because you're behind the camera making these images, you learn a lot about your family, things that were just never discussed, or things that are, quote unquote, left in the closet. And it became very clear that Uncle Charlie had come from a very, very complicated childhood. This is something my mother never shared with me. She chose to sort of leave it behind, and in many ways she was able to move on, but she also had, complications, emotional ramifications from that childhood. So in the last 30 years, interestingly, Uncle Charlie has shared with me his life story, not only visually and intimately by being there, but he's chosen to share with me those stories about his childhood, his relationship to his father, my grandfather, who was like a Jewish wise guy, where he chose not to ever share that with anyone else. And what I've done is I've taken those stories that I've recorded over the last 30 years, and I've put that together with my images. So when you're looking at this book, when you're looking at this 30-year journey that we've had together, it's not my words, it's his first person, it's his narrative. And I think that's important because I didn't live that life. For the last 30 years, I documented that life, but I think the uniqueness about me hanging with my uncle and making these pictures and recording his life story in his words. I mean, even though we're both from Brooklyn, we grew up in very different places at very different times, that when you read this book and you visually experience this book, I think it's an incredibly powerful, I'm not sure if you want to call it memoir, a family album, but I want for the viewers, the readers, to know that it's sort of a collaboration between my uncle and myself.